this morning. This morning I am going to attempt to answer some questions that have come out of the series we've been doing on sexuality and following Jesus. So the last month or so we've been talking, there's three messages that I've shared preceding this, answering a couple of questions and beginning a summary. I'm going to take next Sunday to summarise as well, because I'm just not going to be able to pull it all together today. So there's three messages up on YouTube if you haven't cottoned on or you'd like to follow through, so that you can just get a deeper grasp of what we've been talking about. We believe this year that the Spirit of God is moving in our space in areas of things that make us go, So as followers of Jesus, we're living obviously in our space, our world, and as we've been hearing about RI this morning, that we're all experiencing different things, and we're living in a community that are experiencing different things, and there's a whole stack of pressures and social powers and struggles and all that space. And so this year we're addressing some of the things that make us go, what do I think about that? How does that affect me? What's my space there? What's my role? What's the church's role? As a follower of Jesus, what are we to do? So that's kind of the angle that we've been taking. And so I have two questions that were posed to me, and I'm going to attempt to answer them for those who ask the questions. And I have a book here called Compassion Without Compromise. And so we've been talking about sexuality. So LGBTQIA plus community and the church and our stance and faith. And so we've talked about how love covers and how truth sets us free, and how we really want to cultivate an environment where Jesus stays in the crowd. It is critical that Jesus is not removed from the crowd. The religious leaders wanted to remove Jesus out of every crowd. They wanted him dead. We have to take this man out because we cannot have him teaching the crowd. If he teaches the crowd, we get exposed. If he teaches the crowd, we have to change. If he teaches, so there's this struggle that's happened lifelong, where the world and even the religious folk want to become allies to remove Jesus out of the crowd. And we've been talking about, as a church, if Jesus suddenly didn't see us as his crowd, what would be the point? So if we remove Jesus out of our congregation, we remove the only solution that an individual has for life. Right? So we've been wrestling out how do we have compassion without compromising the truth? And Jesus did this so beautifully. He was the way, the truth, and the life. He came and he walked amongst us. He was able to dwell with sinners. He was able to eat with them. And this stirred up the religious folk, because they, and even those who weren't religious, they couldn't see how truth and grace related. They couldn't see how perfection and sin could coexist. They couldn't see how Jesus could go there. If he is the Son of God and he is all the things that he says he is, how is it possible that love could be there? Well, love has to be there, because it's love that calls the pardon. All of us who have faith in Jesus have experienced the pardoning power of the love of God. While we were yet sinning, he was calling us. He did the work, the cross. So we can't take it personally. We have to mature. We have to be emotionally mature, and I believe that our spiritual maturity and our emotional maturity are always on the same plane. So I can't be super spiritual and be immature, treat poorly, and think that your idea of me is this spiritual mature guy. Because your idea of me, based on my emotional maturity, is actually here. So I'm deceiving myself. So what God is wanting to do, I believe, in this season for us as a church is just to grow us, just resource us, and just settle us for what our community is struggling with. And what I believe a lot of us in the church are struggling with sexuality. identity, not just behaviors, but immorality, but the pressure of walking out truth while understanding we struggle. And if we present as people that have no struggle, we eliminate the communities of our city who are struggling from ever experiencing Jesus. Because they know they're in a struggle, and they look at us and they go, I've got to be perfect to be there. No, we believe and we trust in Jesus' compassion. We believe that Jesus' compassion is the wedge that separates and divides us and helps us in our struggle. So this is a great book, Compassion Without Compromise. I encourage you to read it in this whole area of sexuality. It has a section in the back that's got a multitude of questions that the two pastors that wrote it try and answer. And so you might be going through something personal that you need a personal touch. Come and see me, and let's map this out together. Because part of the reason why I really want to talk about it is because if I'm free to talk about it, so are you. If you know that it's okay, it's not taboo, I can't talk about. No, let's talk about it. So this is a great resource. I specifically stayed away from that question answers bit for those who asked the questions, so that I wasn't just giving you what's in the book. So I really have prayed about it and asked the Lord to help me. But I went and read some of the answers that relate to the questions, and they kind of cross over. So I feel confident that I'm going to be helpful. So one of the questions was, have a family and loved one already committed in a same-sex relationship? And the question was, is there some guidance on how to witness to them, especially when they know it all? So that's one question. I'm going to answer that this morning. The second question was kind of families already in a same-sex relationship raising children. How are we supposed to feel about it? How do I feel about that? So there's children in that situation. There's future. There's biological wrestles and struggles. And we've talked about sexuality not just being our sexual preference and our expression, but it being so dynamic. It's psychological. It's connected to feeling. There's so much connected to our sexuality. And so I think the world and religion have kind of formed an alliance. Jesus out of the picture. Wants Jesus out of the crowd. But we have crowds of people lost and searching and struggling that need Jesus right smack bang there. Talked about it this morning. Our schools need Jesus in the classroom. And we can't just pray, oh Jesus, would you go? Well, how's he going to get there? Jesus said, when you go to prison, when you give the glass of water, when you've done it to me, it's like, we go. So I encourage you, God is speaking to some of us this morning about RI. I know He is. It's not, we don't do anything randomly. We believe that God leads us and guides us right. So thank you, Pastor J. Allen, for the way you communicated this morning. It's right up our alley, hallelujah. Because we're not called Life Impact Church. So we have a name. We have a name because the name describes people that are in it. We're interested in impacting lives, and that includes our children. So these two questions, the framework of answering these two questions is Jesus wants to impact those relationships. He wants to impact the children in it. And he's the answer. So we have to keep him in it. So to keep Jesus in it, we have to watch how we are. Because we represent him, right? So love and truth relate. Jesus, what I said about Jesus before, Jesus was love and he was truth. And so love and truth have a beautiful relationship. So we can't just have truth separated from love. We can't just have love separated from truth. They correlate, they run together, they're in relationship with each other. They're the one person, Jesus. Right? So what are we known by? It's interesting, we're not known by a great doctrine. We're not known by our great theology and our great understanding. We're known by a love life from love. Which is connected to doctrine, obviously. But it reveals that we are followers of Jesus. So let's get to answering the question. family or loved ones already committed in a same-sex relationship. They know it all. I'm assuming that know it all is know all this. Know this. So how do we flow there? Truth does not make kindness impossible. Truth does not make kindness impossible. So as we relate to the ones we love, we can relate in truth and be kind. When thinking about witnessing, the first thing I would say is pray. Well, pray what? Fantastic, thanks for the help. Pray what? Pray how? Well, that's great. But what? Well, let's turn to Colossians 4 and actually see what prayer produces. So Jesus is in the crowd, right? And when Jesus is in the crowd, all kinds of cool things happen. Remember the couple of miracles that Jesus did? And he specifically warned the people in the crowd who experienced his miracle not to say anything. Don't tell anybody. And they waffle off and they tell everybody. And what's the result? Jesus is removed from the crowd. He now has to sneak around. He has to go. He can't be in the crowd because someone got excited about something that God did for them, and that they had the answer, and that they had the truth, and that they were healed, and so they were going to tell everybody, even though Jesus said, right? So I think we just want to, for a moment, just grab the spirit of what Jesus was doing. And I've wrestled out, Jesus, why would you tell people not to say something? And then why would people don't say it? People. Right? And on the other hand, Jesus is God. So if he's saying something, he has a higher, greater understanding and purpose. Right? So as I looked at it this week, it's like, man, they went and spoke. They talked about his glory. They talked about his goodness. They were broken and they were healed. They were, whatever it was, that they were despised, and Jesus healed them. And then Jesus said, more leprosy. And she's like, oh. Now I've lost the crowd. So as you're in your family and in your spaces, be careful you don't lose the crowd. By your exuberant, excited, urgent. There's another thing that makes you go, that Shania and I were talking about something last week, and I'm going to have to speak about urgency now. Something that makes you go, and how often urgency can lead us up the wrong track. Because we're so urgent for someone to get it. And anyway, that's something else. That's not going to answer these questions, but it's part of it. So be careful you don't lose the crowd. So how do we hold the crowd? Well, we pray. But pray what? Well, let's have a look at Colossians. Verse 2, continue earnestly in prayer. Steadfastly, give yourself to it. Not just random, not just here and there, not just occasionally, but earnestly, with some vigilance, right? Let's be vigilant in it. Oh, God. Well, what we want to do is we want to be vigilantes. We want to be vigilantes in the crowd. We want to be the ones in there with their bows and arrows, honestly. Come on. We want to take the justice and power wrestling. We want to fight that because something in us is connected to the power. And that's not wrong because we are filled with the spirit of power. But if we operate out of character and out of space and out of place, it just we'll lose the crowd. So be vigilant. You want to be vigilant? Get in your prayer room, man. Get in prayer and be vigilant. You just take it up, God. Take it up. Come on. Come on, you can express that. You can come on, God. Yes! Yeah. It's, God, this relationship that's happening right under my nose. God, it's heartbreaking to you and it's heartbreaking to me. And let me tell you why I won't marry someone of the same sex. Because by being marrying someone of the same sex, it's not about me not going to jail or me protecting myself. It's It's marriage declares that it's between a man and a woman, right? And there's this covenant that takes place. And there's something that happens that unifies. There's this unity, right? So in our recent national wrestle around same-sex marriage, where I stand is I can't marry someone of the same sex because I'm telling them they've got what they haven't got. I would be saying to them, you're one. But oneness is for a man and a woman, according to Scripture. And so if I go and tell them they're one, but they're not, that's not the answer. That doesn't solve the problem. That's not the solution, right? We heard about the testimony of a lady that was struggling with her gender, and how going through the gender wrestle and struggle and all that stuff didn't change the way she felt. So we've got to keep Jesus in the crowd so you can be vigilant in your prayer life. Now what are you vigilant? What are you praying? Well, you're adding it to Thanksgiving. So you're taking something that's promised and you're thanking the Lord for it. You're not just a vigilante going out about your own destruction and your own declarations and what you want to see happen to that spirit, relationship, whatever it is. Right? To be vigilant in prayer, it has to be with thanksgiving. So it has to be connected to what's promised. For the follower of Jesus, all thanksgiving is connected to the promise. So it's not about what we want. It's not about what we think. It's not about answering your own questions or your own debate. One of the answers in this book, I'm going to read it, page 119, it's a really cool little statement. To get the context, I'll read the book and read it all. But here it is. What was the question? My neighbours are a lesbian couple who occasionally converse and have a cordial relationship. We occasionally converse and have a cordial relationship. I've never out and out told them that I think their lifestyle is sinful. Am I just being a coward? Or is it okay not to mention this and just try to be a good neighbour to them? So there's a few answers. Here's answer number 4. Become very aware of what God is doing in the life of this couple. Sensitize yourself to what God is doing in the life of this couple. A good prayer is to pray this. So if this question I'm trying to answer, you've got loved ones who are in a committed same-sex relationship and they know it all. Maybe you could pray this. Lord, use me for what you want to do. Do you want me to serve them? Share biblical truth. And then as you are with them, seek to discern why God has you in a relationship with them. And as God opens doors, walk through them. I think sometimes we think we have to win the battle, win the fight. Jesus is the victor. He's already done that. He's won it. And we walk in that freedom. So meanwhile, you're continuing, you're praying, you're at it, you're vigilant, thanksgiving. Meanwhile, Paul says, pray for us. God will open to us a door for the word to speak the mystery of Christ. So let's connect the two. Paul is saying, pray. Earnest, vigilant, thanksgiving. And while you're doing that, pray for me that this would take place. That door for the word to speak the mystery of Christ, for which I am also in chains, that I may make it manifest as I ought to speak. So as he's asking for prayer, he's declaring what it offers. Come on, he can't ask you and believe that this is the outcome and detach you praying for him and it not being your answer. So as you pray, chains there'll be an open manifestation of speaking the truth. God will make a way for it not to be about this intellectual argument. And there's another thing that makes us go, that I need to touch on, and that's the difference between conviction and convincing. We've got that one. Coming short. I think I'll do that next. The difference between conviction butt up against the same thing that is there anyway. They know it all, right? But the moment you operate with this capacity that, my God, that conviction. You see, conviction it's the Spirit. The Holy Spirit convicts the world of sin, right? So if we have guidance and teaching, knowledge and understanding, discernment, all the things of the Spirit, guess what else we have? Conviction. So don't close the door on conviction by trying to figure it out and work it and answer it. The truth is the truth, and if you haven't figured it out yet, or you haven't got all the answers, it doesn't change the truth. So if you're in those relationships and you're trying to answer some questions that you don't have the answer to, if you are representing the truth still stands. And so you have the time, and I believe the respect for that person that you love, to go, you know what? Let's reconvene. Let's just pull this back because I don't have the answer for that. But that doesn't change the answer. Right? So as we're operating in the Spirit, conviction's there all the time. Like conviction's there with truth, right? It's there. And it's doing the work. Is this helping? I think it's covering question 2 as well. I hope it is, because I'm trying to rush along here. In these 2 questions, an unsettled witness is an unreliable source of truth. Think of it. Go to a court of law, and the judge goes, right, bring out your witness. And the witness, man, they come up and they take that stand, and give you them around. And it's, you know, I was there. No, it wasn't 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. No, only 4 o'clock. Like, the moment you're unsettled, you're unreliable. The judge is going, next. Because, right, an unsettled witness is an unreliable source of truth. So as we relate to people, what I believe the Lord is wanting to do by His Spirit is comforting, convicting, teaching, guiding, overwhelming, powerful Spirit that lives and abides and dwells in us is to settle us. And so part of this whole teaching process, I believe that God is wanting to talk about, and as we can talk about it together, God is going to settle us. So that we can go into some relationships and we get asked some wild questions. No. Okay, I'm just going to get an answer. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with me. Now, you just helped me understand a whole different aspect of that thing of what you believe, what you're doing. And we can take it, and then the truth, right, we can begin to build that reliable source of truth. Because what's really cool in verse 5 is if we walk in wisdom towards those who are outside, we can redeem the time. And we let our speech always be with grace, seeking the soul, that you may know how to answer each one. That is a settled witness. That's a settled witness that you are in Christ, that you have the conviction. Now remember, your settling is not based on this. Mary explained it so well when the angel came to her and declared that she was going to birth our Lord. And she's trying to figure it out in this moment. Like the angel's there, didn't even have time to go and think about it. Like in the moment, the presence of God is there sharing this future vision of the world's hope, and that she's going to bear forth this child. She's going to name him Jesus, and he's going to be all these things. And she's like, oh my God! Yes, that's right, my God, you're there, you're speaking to me. Give me some time out. I just need to consider all this. No, what she did was the Spirit of God, as the Spirit was instructing her of what was laying ahead for her, that she knew she had no hope of fulfilling without the Spirit. Because she was a virgin. For those of you who are talking about sexuality, we've talked about how a man and a woman kind of come together in God's perfect plan and they have a child. Right? So Mary knows that something's not going to work in this plan without a man. But the Spirit of God's able to settle her with the instructions for the future that are not just going to affect her, but are going to save mankind. She's able to settle it. She's able to say, oh, let it be. I'll have it all. I don't have to understand it now. I don't have to have the complete revelation of what it looks like. And so in our relationships, sometimes maybe we're going into them from the end perspective rather than the process perspective. And during the process, we're dealing with real people who God is sensitive to. The woman needed Jesus in the crowd when she had the issue of blood. If Jesus wasn't in the crowd, she had nowhere to search. She might have heard about the testimony. She might have heard about all the things that he'd done, but if she didn't have access to him, she was never going to find the answer to her solution. And so the process of the 12 years and that space and all the things that happened, Jesus knew what was happening, but Jesus knew in that crowd that day a woman touched him. And so as we work to be with family members who are convinced that they're right, you don't have to be right. Jesus is right. And if you don't have to be right, you can just share your account, your version of Jesus alive in you. And that will make you a reliable witness because that will help set up you. And so we have Mary as a reliable witness. We're talking about her witness today because the Spirit of God was able to set her in a moment that she had no clue what was really going to happen. And so I think it's okay for us as a congregation of believers to really just go, you know what? That's really difficult. Remember that every person is unique and dynamic. And God loves this. It is so... He wants to be in the crowd of people that they're hanging out with, right? So he wants you in their space. So there's a child that's being raised by a same-sex couple, and we have, oh God, the man's touch and the woman's touch. We have this wrestle. God knows the wrestle of the child. And so we can move into that space with a confidence and a reliability to be a reliable source, knowing that we're praying and believing that there will be. Not only will there be a door for the word, but there will be the expression of wisdom toward the one who needs the word. This is where love and truth relate. Time for worship team, please. Love and truth relate. This whole dynamic that chains are going to be broken, and sometimes we can be so urgent, and I'm not going to get into that message, but we can be so urgent on facing and breaking the chains that if we don't operate with wisdom, grace, we don't redeem the time. Remember, an unsettled witness is an unreliable source of truth.